So you have this vision of human existence. Here we are, that's the wheel of life, and how do we move from where we are to our potential? And just a little bit of an overview again. At the heart of all religions, I think there's this response to life. And particularly in Buddhism, there's a response to life of love. The Buddhist vision of human existence might seem quite cognitive. There's this kind of wisdom element, seeing of our human predicament, but underneath that clear seeing is the response to life of love. And that's certainly been, as I understand it, my path, has been a process of learning how to repeatedly open my heart. A process of seeing more clearly what it is I defend or protect, how I become in the world in a way which closes out, where I compete to fit in, to negotiate my position, defending, judging, holding on. But my greatest happiness, perhaps, my greatest well-being, has come when I've let go of that holding on, that holding out. My greatest well-being is when I connect with my depths, when I open my heart, when I have a deeper emotional responsiveness to letting go into a more expansive way of being. And that contains within it a deeper cognitive understanding. Conditionality is how the Buddha's Enlightenment experience is often articulated. It's taught through the concept of conditionality. So everything arises and falls away in dependence on conditions. And that operates in two ways. One where, dependent on conditions, B arises in dependence of A, and B being the opposite of A. And that represents our habitual re-becoming. Yeah? We're unaware often, and we just react to stimuli. Mechanically, habitually, we're caught up in our habitual reactive responses, back and forth, round and round. It's the trend of conditionality which is represented by the Tibetan way of life that we've been studying for the last 4 weeks. So that backwards and forth stops. We allow our mind, when we allow our mind to relax into just experiencing. Just experiencing the vast spaciousness of awareness. The turbulence of our emotionality or emotional responses subside into an open-hearted, wholehearted embrace of life. The second trend of conditionality the Buddha sets out, where conditions unfold in a progressive development. Conditions give rise to responses which augment each other. And our responses build. They lead us into a process which progressively is related to growth, expansion, development. They unfold with greater and greater sense into open, creative responses which arise in dependence of emotionally positive, spacious awareness. And those open, creative responses are when we meet life with a sense of ease, a greater awareness, a greater responsiveness, a greater openness, an open heart. The progressive process of conditionality the Buddha taught as a path, a way, moving from one way of being to another. And it's got many formats in Buddhism. Threefold path, ethics, meditation, wisdom. Noble Eightfold Path, the path of purifications, the paramitas, or the bodhisangas. There's just huge amounts of them. But this progressive unfolding of the creative, expanding nature of mind is articulated most clearly in the spiral path. It's a symbol of progressive trend of conditionality. So a spiral, a continuous curving line that winds around its central point, moving progressively further away from it, the spiral path, a path emanating from that point, moving further away, expanding, revolving around its centre, a chain of steps which, if we walk, is progressive, steps leading to the next. Each stage, when developed fully, into the next, build progressively an ever-expanding path of growth. Stepping onto that spiral, we embark on a journey of continuous development, of process and progress, progressively creating, responding, sometimes returning to similar themes and lessons, but at a higher, more experienced level of understanding. It's open-ended. There's no fixed destination, but it's a path that leads to enlightenment. It's a way of being, a way of becoming, just open creativity. It's an end of suffering. The Buddha describes the process thus: just as monks, when rain descends heavily upon some mountain top, the water flows down along the slopes and fills the clefts, gullies and creeks. These being filled, fill up the pools. These being filled, fill up the ponds. These being filled, fill up the streams. These being filled, fill up the rivers. These being filled, the rivers being filled, fill up the great ocean. And it consists of three basic stages, three great stages. One, the path of integration, where we integrate ourselves, developing ever more awareness, ever more positive emotion. There's a turning point, a point of no return, where there's a direct experience of how things are. And there's a path of transformation, when we transform ourselves in relationship to that vision. As part of our human condition, we have sense organs. Independent of our sense organs, touch, taste, sight, sound, smell, the mind, we come into contact with the world. Sensations arise. Immediately felt, pleasant, unpleasant, neutral. Instead of simply knowing the sensation, the mind, us, habitually adds interpretation, habitually moves into craving or resistance. We like this, we want it. We don't like that, we reject, we react. The movement strengthens a sense of me and my world. Mostly, we're unwilling or unable to fully be with our present moment experience. That you may have noticed that when you're meditating or just in life. We develop all sorts of responses, ways of not staying fully with our experience. Our reactive responses include avoidance, distracting ourselves with work, with social media, with entertainment, with constant busyness. Suppression, pushing our experiences down, telling ourselves, I shouldn't feel a certain way. Intellectualizing, staying in analysis, in explanations, problem solving, instead of feeling what's happening emotionally. Over control, when we try and manage our detail of our life to reduce an experience of uncertainty or discomfort. Numbing, when we use substances. Overreacting, excessive sleeping of our behaviour to dull our experience, maybe because of the emotional intensity. There's rumination, when we replay the past, going over and over a past experience, worrying about the future, instead of engaging in our present moment experience. Self-criticism, turning against ourselves with harsh judgments, I shouldn't be like this. Blame, directing discomfort outward, focusing on others' faults, rather than recognizing that we are finding our experience difficult. Perfectionism, believing that if everything is done perfectly, unwanted experience or painful emotions can be avoided. A desire for something else, believing if only we had the right experience, the right object, then our life would be perfect. People pleasing, prioritizing others' needs or approval, while disconnecting from our own feelings or our own preferences. Withdrawal, pulling away from relationships or situations to avoid exposure. Acting out, expressing distress through impulsive behaviours, anger or conflict, rather than directly experiencing our underlying emotions. And so on, and so on. Being totally with our experience is difficult. Yet we have sense organs. Touch, taste, sight, sound, the mind, which in dependence on contact with the world, sensations arise. In this context, our experience is dukkha. It's unsatisfactory. There's a resistance to us experiencing our experience, not wanting this experience, wanting to have a different experience. And because of that, there's an unease, a friction between our sensations and our responses to them. Friction causes a restlessness, a kind of subtle restlessness of the mind, trying to adjust to reality when this shouldn't be happening. This isn't what I want. There's a discomfort when we tighten around our experience and we contract. Within this way of experiencing, there's a sense of incompleteness. There's a sense of difficulty. There's a sense, perhaps, of suffering and pain. There's certainly a sense of dissatisfaction. Dukkha, unsatisfactoriness, is described by the Buddha as an ill-fitting chariot wheel. And when our chariot wheel is ill-fitting, then we are destined for a bumpy ride. An alternative response is to turn towards our experience. Instead of, I need this to stop, to change, to resolve, we can develop our attitude of, what is present right now? Turning towards our experience requires choice. requires a higher degree of awareness. It asks things of us. It changes us. It requires courage, honesty, tenderness. Being fully with our experience is a tricky thing. We encounter aspects of ourselves that we don't like. We have views around how things are, how things should be, how people should be. We encounter aspects that we may be fearful of, aspects of ourselves that we don't know. But if we choose through meditation, through life, to turn towards our experience, to allow our present moment experience to be experienced, if we choose to stop trying to take control and correct our experience, we learn, I can stay with this. It's okay to not fix this right now. I can tolerate the unresolved experience. When we turn towards our experience, we allow our experience to be more fully experienced. It's naturally, our attention broadens. Instead of a tunnel vision of some problem, we become more open. There's more experience in our experience. Sensations become more inclusive. Our emotional tone becomes less defensive and narrow. We experience a feeling of being more open. The resistance softens. Content just to be in our experience with what's here, our resistance to experience drops. We no longer spend energy defending, no longer spend energy contracting. We feel more open, more at ease, more alive. It's our willingness to turn toward, become open to, trust in that turning towards process that is the functional core of Shraddha. This turning towards requires a softening, a letting go of holding judgments, habitual patterns, and coming into a softer, kinder, more open way of being. It requires an opening of the heart. So this is the first critical step on the path, on the spiral path, the path to enlightenment. Independence of dukkha, unsatisfactoriness, Shraddha arises. One of the things when I think perhaps you know this, but I remember when, quite a number of years ago, when I was learning to meditate, what happens is that you start to realize that your mind, well, you start to experience times in your mind when you are more connected and more at ease, and there's times in your mind when you're reactive. And you start to get to know the feeling of that reactivity. I remember one time particularly, I was walking away from home, and my mind, I had all these thoughts in my mind that were just kind of about some issue, and I just knew they were reactive. I just knew that, they were just going on. In a way, I knew that there was another way of experiencing, and basically, I didn't buy into those thoughts. I kind of was able at that stage to know there was another alternative and to allow them to be there, but not buy into them. I think this is a process, part of a one way when we no longer believe in our reactive minds. Another example perhaps is somebody was talking to me about where actually there's reactivity going on, and they have quite a strong response just to the positive. the positive qualities of the Buddha to positive qualities like kindness or generosity, or so there's just a trust in actually moving towards that positivity, those positive qualities. Perhaps a different experience when we're making that change, but not on the same level, but on a different level. Sometimes we need to resolve problems on a different level. It's an example I've talked about before, which was an experience of Vajramitra when I was having a difficult, in meditation, finding it difficult to connect, coming up against myself, feeling the resistance quite strongly. And after the meditation, I went into my room and lay on the bed, put my head face to the wall, and was just trying to feel and be with that experience. Kind of feeling there was no way out. There was no direction. I didn't know what to do. And then I had this experience in my mind where a flower, like a tulip, came into my mind. And then there was an arrow that came through, very, very slow motion, came through across into the tulip and cut into the tulip, and the tulip kind of shredded apart. And then my mind opened up into a blue, you might refer to it as a blue sky, but a blue, and within that blue sky started to evolve a kind of a white, architecturally pristine, beautiful building. Yeah. So again, I think at this level there's a kind of sense of doubt or frustration or fixedness and something opening up. It would be easy, I think, to think that we should replace dukkha with faith. But it's more accurate to say that dukkha is held differently. It's held within an open, soft, kind awareness. It's a trust that arises within the experience of dukkha. A confidence that we can be with that experience, with the difficulties. A trust, confidence, more than our tight holding on. A trust, confidence in the open dimension which all experience arises from. We gradually reduce the need to escape it, and that new relationship is Shraddha. At first, our faith maybe feels vague, it maybe feels confused, it's undeveloped. Gradually, though, it strengthens. Eventually, we understand that faith confidence is this trust in moving towards or into an open dimension. Trust in staying open to the process of experiencing. Trust in the creative responses to life. And that equates to the three jewels, the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha. Quoting Sangharajita, where he talks about Shraddha as being the emotional response of what is ultimate in us to what is ultimate in the universe. So over time, we place our heart upon, not so much on the things of everyday experience, but more and more on the taste of freedom. We turn away from our reactive habits, the process of moving into openness, into possibility, and we move more fully into our experience, include more of ourselves, our sensations. We become more aware of our bodies, our emotions, our thoughts, the sounds, other. We learn to remain open and rest in awareness. Opening to the not knowing. Open to experiencing at deeper levels. Open to experiencing a deeper reality. our faith develops. Each opening, a blow for freedom. Each opening, a step on the spiral path. Two, independence on Shraddha, joy arises. 3, independence on joy, rapture arises. Independence on rapture, tranquility arises. Independence on tranquility, happiness arises. So if we continue to choose, to trust, have confidence, we move in a direction of our experience. We become fully absorbed in it. When rain descends heavily upon some mountain top, the water flows down along the slope and fills up the clefts, gullies, and creeks. These being filled, fill up the pools. These being filled, fill up the ponds. These being filled, fill up the streams. Then, these being filled, fill up the rivers. The process builds progressively. Nothing is to be done to experience, simply aware of what's here. Letting go our resistance, the struggle drops. We become content. Just to experience this at ease. We relax. Our attention stabilizes. We feel more open. We feel the joy of being human. We don't rely so much on external things. We feel freer, more detached, more at peace with ourselves. We have a good conscience. Being content, we're happy. Underlying this joy, we have a sense that we've found something important, something of meaning. As Srangarachita puts it, the contact is not something merely intellectual, theoretical. Our hearts have actually been placed on something higher. Shraddha literally meaning a placing of the heart. And as a result, the change begins to take place in our lives. We become just a little bit less self-centered. We become just a little bit more generous and outward-going. We don't hang on to things quite so tightly. Independence of joy, rapture arises. So pretty is an emotional, tense response, a thrilling, even ecstatic joy. Experiencing not just mentally, but physically. Calm, still, energy becomes available. Energies coalesce, rising up into intense pleasure, almost unbearable pleasure, uncomfortably pleasurable. Independence on rapture, tranquility arises. So from rapture, from that intense pleasure, arises calm. This represents a kind of calming down, a pacification. The physical effects of the rapture, the ecstatic joy, drop. It's almost as though the unbearable pleasure of rapture is too much. It builds and builds. Suddenly, we can't bear any more intensity. We can't bear any more pleasure. And it subsides into calm, into tranquility. There's a kind of a deep, nourishing experience, an inner peace. These being filled, fill up the pools. These being filled, fill up the ponds. These being filled, fill up the streams. These being filled, fill up the rivers. Dependence on tranquility, happiness arises. We start off with joy, moved into rapture, a period of deep, tranquil calm, deepens into bliss. quoting Sangharakshita, here we are told that it's not only bliss, there is peace, love, compassion, joy, equanimity. There are no negative emotions, no craving, no fear, no hatred, no anxiety, no guilt, no remorse. All the negative emotions have been purged. Whatever energy we had invested in those negative emotions now flows positively into bliss. These stages are a stage of integration. What's been described as this natural progression of deeper and deeper meditative states. Something that will happen on retreat, if you go on retreat for an extended period and are fully with your experience, you become absorbed, and this natural progression will be your experience. An experience which is far deeper and fuller, a far deeper range of mental experiences which arise progressively, naturally. Again, Sangharakshita, each of the stages represents a spiritual experience, a process in transition to another experience which is more advanced. The experiences are not fixed or static. Each experience at all the time is a process in development into something greater than itself. However, most of us, most of the time, experience ourselves with energies which are divided. We have energies that pull us in different directions. There's part of us that may want to practice meditation, and there's part of us that may not. We are not unified. We are not integrated. The same augmented practice, however, also happens when we engage over time in spiritual practice. Over time, gradually, we integrate. Spiritual practice also is the gathering together of our scattered energies through the development of awareness, through the development of positive emotion. We unify our energies, both conscious and unconscious, harmonizing them until we naturally become a spontaneous whole. Stepping into spiritual practice, we embark on a journey of continuous development, continuous process, progressively developing creativity. We embark on a continuous unfolding journey, revolving around ourselves, progressively gathering ourselves more and more of ourselves up, with wider and wider sweeps, repeatedly returning to similar themes, similar lessons on higher and deeper levels, more experienced levels of understanding. With each sweep, we open our heart to more of ourselves, to more of reality. Independent on happiness, concentration arises. Again, Sangharakshita. Samadhi or meditation comprises various things. In a word, it's a word with many different meanings on a number of different levels. But first of all, it consists in this gathering together of all one's scattered energies and bringing them together in a single focus. It's not a forced focusing or a forced concentration, but it naturally arises with ease. It brings with it a stable, still awareness. Stable and still because there's a development alongside that of positive emotion. The positive emotion brings the stability of our minds. Samadhi brings the concentrated force, the concentrated energy, the energies, the forces derived from meditation experiences, the dhyana states. It brings clarity, stability, emotional positivity, focused energy of the meditating consciousness. And this energy, this force, this stability, this clarity enables purely conceptual understanding to transform into direct experience. Independence on samadhi, on concentration, knowledge and vision of things as they really are arises. So based on stable, positive awareness, directly experiencing, clearly experiencing the arising and falling away, we experience the insubstantial nature of our experience. We experience the insubstantial nature of our own self. We experience the interconnected nature of self and other. Sangharachita. Like a sudden flash of lightning that, on a dark night, lights up the landscape just for an instant. In a flash, the nature of reality is illuminated. That seeing breaks the fetters, the chains, the shackles that binds us to our reactivity. They break our view that we're small, fixed self. They break out that sense that there's just me. And we embrace the larger open dimension of our being that we all participate in. No longer is there any doubt. It breaks through the vagueness so that we see clearly how things are. Breaking the views that we're separate. And we open to the deep interconnectivity of our lives. Not an idea, but a direct experience, an emotional understanding that comes from that direct experience, an understanding that comes from experiencing directly. It's not that you change overnight, but we break fundamental attitudes, emotionally held views, now understanding who we really are. Like any experience, it's transitory. Clouds open up to reveal themselves, to reveal the nature of awareness, and inevitably they close. They close over again. But this process, this part of our process, marks an important turning point, a point in our journey towards enlightenment. It's a turning about, a turning away from the convictions of our habitual, reactive, small self. And at our deepest level of being, we now know all things arise and fall away. We know, because we've experienced it directly, that there is only an open dimension. Part of the chain and the process, it marks a point of no return. A point when you turn with the conviction of your being towards the process of expansion, of growth, the creative, the open dimension. But the forces that but even so, the forces that drive our reactivity are broken, but not eliminated. Independence of knowledge, of vision of things how they really are, disenchantment arises. Independence on disenchantment, dispassion arises. Independent on dispassion, emancipation arises. Independent on emancipation, knowledge of destruction of the cankerers arises. These stages constitute a path of transformation, a working out, a further integration in the light of one's direct seeing. Again, Sangharakshita. As the flashes of insight become more frequent, more continuous, they eventually become a steady beam of light that is capable of penetrating, as it were, into the depths of reality. These stages represent transforming ourselves into a new being, a new self, gradually aligning ourselves, transforming, embodying, reflecting, illuminating how things actually are. Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche says this: whenever clouds gather, the nature of sky is not corrupted. And when they disperse, it is not ameliorated. The sky does not become less or more vast. It does not change. It is the same with the nature of mind. It is not spoiled by the arrival of mind. It is not spoiled by the arrival of thoughts, nor improved by their disappearance. The nature of mind is emptiness. Its expression is clarity. These two aspects of mind are essentially one simple image designed to indicate the diverse modalities of mind. The ultimate nature of mind is beyond all concepts, all definitions, all fragmentation. So ultimately we turn towards both progressively creative nature of our own being and the reactive. Dukkha again is held differently within the nature this time of the understanding of shunyata, an opening of the heart to how things are, more clearly seeing, perfect vision, the emergence of the great compassion of the Buddha's vision. As though we give ourselves here, oneself, to the beloved. We open our heart more and more to the void. So Buddhism is not just a religious teaching. Primarily, it's a path to enlightenment. Today, we've concerned ourselves with the practical aspect of Buddhism, which is preeminently practical. There's a spiral chain of conditionality, which sets out in practical terms progressive development, the stages of the spiritual path. It explains that enlightenment is not just an uncaused event that happens by chance, that things do not just arise and pass away by chance or by accident. Whatever arises independent on conditions. Whatever ceases independent on conditions. Enlightenment arises independent on conditions. It's a progressive developing, a spiritual experiencing, an unfolding of specific sequence of spiritual links, of steps. If we choose to take those steps, to make the effort, we place ourselves in the right conditions, enlightenment unfolds. Come now to the teaching of the can. Just like the can of baked beans on the shrine, it says, Buddhism says, what's on the can. Just like if you open the can of baked beans, inside there are baked beans. Yeah? For Buddhism, you unopen the can and inside there's growth, there's potential, there's creativity, there's our development. However, I'm going to finish soon, so you'll be pleased to know. However, it's not quite as literal as the symbol of the spiral path implies. Again, Sangharakshara reminds us that what we're approaching is ultimately mysterious, something that actually cannot be defined. Quoting Sangharakshara again, one sees that in reality there is no conditionality, no causality, and one is able to face up to this fact, even though it goes against all one's suppositions. One sees the whole of existence as just being like a mirage, not really coming into existence, and therefore not really going out of existence either. And what one sees, and what seals the genuine mystery of this realization, is that one is all the more compassionate for it. Nevertheless, approaching the mystery, we must envisage it in some way. So Sangharakshara, in his 1978 talk, envisages our journey not so much as a symbol, but as a series of symbols, as a group of symbols, a more intricate group of symbols which together suggest the mysterious process of unfolding transformation implicit in the spiritual journey, in the spiral path. Quoting, "It seems to change its form as we look at it. At first it seems like a path that stretches far away into the distance, a path that winds now through cultivated fields, now through dense forests, a path that traverses swamps and deserts, broad rivers and deep ravines, a path that winds around the base of mighty mountains, on the tops which rest clouds, a path that disappears eventually over the horizon. But now the symbol changes. The path seems to straighten out, to stand upright. It becomes a great stair, a ladder that stretches from heaven to earth and from earth to heaven. It's a ladder of gold, of silver, of crystal. But again, the symbol changes. The ladder becomes slender, becomes solid, becomes three-dimensional, becomes green in colour. It becomes the stem of a giant plant, a gigantic tree. And on this tree are enormous blossoms. Those higher, the blossoms lower down are relatively small. Those higher, much bigger. And the biggest blossom of all, at the very top of the tree, shines like a sun. In the calyxes of all these blossoms there sit all kinds of beautiful and radiant figures. Buddhas, bodhisattvas, arahants, darkas and darkanins. Thank you. So, not a lot of time left for questions, thank goodness. So I think we'll leave it there, and if you think of your questions, you can come back next week when somebody else can answer them.